Commanders in the title name.
Copy. Will do.
Maybe say something like, "Well, the Commanders lead, or the Commanders leading the DC team into a golden age," or something.
There you go.
Or you could just say,
I like it.
"Is DC going into a golden age of sports?" and then put Commanders Wizards.
All I can do is what I do every week is try my absolute best. And if you see the title and you say
I do.
it's not it's not
I
the
added
best
it.
thing I could it's not the best we could do, then
I'm
I
just
welcome you to change the title. Guys,
well.
welcome to a little behind the scenes look in here. Pop asked me if I'm ready. He says, ready to go. I say, yep, I press record, and then he starts giving me feedback on
I had
production
no
issues.
clue you had
Camera's
started.
rolling.
I had no clue you
Brilliant.
had started.
Lovely. I tell you what, I'm keeping it. It's
I
great
know.
stuff.
Perfect.
It's great stuff. Pop, how you doing, man?
I'm not sure about that maximum effort comment, but you know, I'm doing well.
It's good to be back here. It's good to be back doing the pod, man. Always never a dull moment getting this podcast
That's
up
what
and
the
rolling.
people pay for, the father son dynamic, you know?
Exactly. I love it. I love it. I was glad. I was just sitting watching
I
that thing
hold you to a
roll.
high standard.
Oh man, I saw content gold start streaming in as Pop started going off there. Could have set him up for more, but I chose not to do you dirty. It's good. We got a special topic today. There's a lot of excitement around the DC sports scene as a whole. You've got me as kind of unintentionally coordinating with the Nats shirt and the Nats hat, but the situation under the hat's kind of a disaster right
Fire.
now. So I figured
Fire.
might as well put on a little DC gear. I look like I'm getting ready to roll up to Nats Park. It's pretty crazy. But special topic today. The Wizards got the number one overall pick. The Commanders going into season 3 with Jayden Daniels. Figured hoping for a lot of turnaround this year there. And then the Nats all of a sudden look like a real baseball team out of nowhere when everybody was kind of expecting a rebuild. So the question today is, are we entering the golden age of DC sports? Could we be entering a golden age of DC sports? And before we get into that, guys, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, check out all the good stuff. We got plenty of topics to talk about, and we might be the only Commanders related podcast that's not breaking down Brandon Ayuk's Instagram post word for word at this point. So please enjoy a little refreshing step away from all of that nonsense right now. How do you feel about this, man? I mean, this topic's your baby here, this DC sports golden age. So set the scene for the people.
Yeah,
What inspired you to bring this about?
I think it was inspired by, the AJ Dybantsa pick with the Wizards. There's a lot of debate. Should it be Peterson? Should it be Dybantsa? I think clearly after the draft and hearing the reasoning behind it, I was an AJ Dybantsa guy, although, I would have trusted their front office. But I think, if you look at the Commanders, you look at the Wiz, you look at the Nats, they all have new leadership in terms of front office. They all seem to be very competent and good at what they do. And, Wizards are getting out of tank mode into contention mode. So I just thought, hey, why not us? Why not? DC is a great sports town. Just haven't had great teams for the most part. But you remember that championship run with the Nats. You got the championship hat on, in 2019. How great that was. 2018 cap. So I think it's time. I think we got the right leadership in place. I think we're headed in the right direction. So I think we'll break it down team by team. Probably spend more time on the Commanders and Wizards since that's our kind of sweet spot from a knowing ball point of view. I know we focus on the Commanders. That seems to be when we get the most views is the Commanders content. So we'll start there. But I think it's exciting times in DC. I don't know that we're excited enough about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty wild looking at all of it, and I
So
think
this is a glass half full view, son, today.
certainly, yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
certainly, it's exciting, and like you look at the Commanders, and it's like they're building in the right direction, and regardless of whether or not this move works out or these set of moves work out, the moves are the moves are indicative of a competent situation. right? They're indicative of a competent professional front office that's doing what they can to try and make the team better, try and build this thing the right way. And you've got even bigger, macro news, bigger than like a Chingakakwa or a Rashad White. They're going back to DC. RFK is happening, RFK 2.0. The NFL draft is coming to the mall next year in Washington, D.C. So the Commanders organization as a whole is just moving like a real competent professional football organization. It's a refreshing thing and it's a new day. And I think it's something that we take for granted overall as fans because we had that 12-5 season, we got that sugar high, and now we want to just keep chasing that as opposed to really zooming out and going, hey, maybe last year didn't go the way we wanted. Hopefully this year, I think the truth, as it always is, will be somewhere in the middle between that 5-12 and that 12-5. Right? If it's 7 wins, if it's 10 wins, wherever it is, I think it's probably in that 7-11 range this year. Um, Regardless, you have a team that's really moving in the right direction, not middling about, trying to figure things out. Some reports about high expectations for the coaching staff this year in terms of performing, coming out a little bit. And it's really like looking back at that 2024 season, it's like if they could do it then, why can't they do it now? And it gives me a little bit of a chill to say that because I remember sitting here about a year ago and going, you can't tell me that this football team doesn't get better with Debo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil added. And sure enough, football team didn't get much better. Not because of those guys. Those guys I think both performed to their capital. But team didn't get better. Team got a lot worse. So it feels a little eerie saying it, but yeah, I think overall the Commanders trending in the right direction. Wizards, I mean, how exciting is having the number one overall pick for the Wizards, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. No question about it. Super exciting. Seems just such a great kid.
Yeah,
Um, but I was thinking maybe we finish up with the Commanders first, and then we'll drop
sure,
over to the Wiz.
sure.
Is that all right?
That's fine with me.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think my comments about the Commanders are I don't know that we're excited enough. I think the fan base is so, for a good reason. 30 years of misery, and that old owner is gone. We're not even going to mention his name. Um, you know, but you see what they were able to accomplish in 2024. We just forget about 2024 so quickly. That was a champion. They went to the championship game, the NFC championship game. They were one step away from the Super Bowl. And even if you look at that performance, people say, oh, they got blown out. They're in that game. They just kept turning the ball over. If they protect the ball better with five out there, you never know. And I think the excitement, I just don't think we're excited enough. Because I also think that you got to think of it, it's not a one and done situation in the sense that, yeah, it's year three. And yeah, we got a taste in 2024, but they've got a bunch of draft picks next year. There's no reason they can't put a similar offseason together next year. They got a bunch of cap space. You just start stacking and stacking and stacking. And even if this year is an 8, 9, 10 win season, nothing to say they can't keep building off of that. And, you got a healthy Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin come back in addition with all the new players, and excitement around the new coordinators and the changes that they're making on offense, defense to bring this scheme, both these schemes, and we talked about this a lot last week's pod. You could check it out there into the modern age. I just don't know that we're excited about it. And you brought up new ownership. It's not just Josh Harris at the top, but that entire group, right? You got a competent GM and Adam Peters. You may not agree with every move he's made. And one thing that I love about everybody they've brought in, and maybe as a dig against the aforementioned person that you brought up at the beginning of the segment, is the character of these guys. They really seem to be gelling and really seem to be bought into this brotherhood approach to things. And, there's some, the team speed has been massively upgraded. So I think there's a lot to be excited, even if it's not, and, similar conversation as we get into the Wizards, even if it's not directly in 2026. I do expect a big improvement in 2026 over 2025. And who knows? Maybe they get hot again. right? And but as this next 2 to 3, and that's kind of think that's the range we're in the next 1 to 3 years, right? When we think that this could really be something to get excited about with all four of these teams, really.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for the Commanders, like, it's crazy that this hasn't even come up yet, but like Jayden Daniels, they're a franchise
Exactly.
quarterback. We have an
Exactly.
MVP caliber franchise quarterback that when he's healthy, when he's at his best, he's as good as anybody in the league. I mean, I was so confident going into 2025 saying he is the best quarterback in the NFL. And obviously, injuries, a little bit of regression with the system. You hope that he can get back to that level this year, but there's no reason not to believe that Jayden is not at the forefront of that Commander's success because the reality of it is, if the guy's on the field playing how he played in 2024, there's no reason to believe that this team ever is out of contention for anything. It's just that he's that type of player.
And
So,
and not he's a better person, right? He's an
yeah,
incredible attitude. His quote this week, they ran an interview of him on the Commanders YouTube page, and he said, "They've invested a lot in me. I feel like I owe them." That's what he said about the Commanders organization. Match that attitude to some of the other superstar players we hear out there speaking, feeling like the world is owed to them and they don't owe anything back. I mean, he said, they invested a lot in me. I feel like I owe them to perform better than I did last year and to really pay them back for their investment.
it just dawned on me. I've been wondering for so long how Jaden is like with this whole Brandon Ayuk situation, like everything that you know about Jaden, what's and Ayuk seemingly clearly having a couple screws loose, and it just hit me. It's me. My friends are nuts. Most of my friends are complete nut jobs. I God love them. They're watching this, but complete lunatics. And I'm a very chill, easygoing guy. Not don't really cause a lot of trouble, but like it keeps it exciting being around people that are
Except on the golf.
a little eccentric. Um, the golf course is just a good old like depression is anger turned inwards. That's what happens on the golf course. Um, but that's the case with Jaden. It just hit me. It finally just hit me because you look at like neighbors and Ayuk, and you look at some of the guys that he was really close with, and you go like, man, these guys are a little out there, a little eccentric. It just hit me. Everything makes sense now. So
There you go.
I'm all good with JD5. Big fan, of course. On the Wizards side, let's get to the Wizards.
Yeah.
I think what's going on with the Wizards is so exciting, and you hear Michael Winger talk, and maybe he's just the best used car salesman of all time, right? But you hear that guy talk, don't you want to kind of buy a house from Michael Winger? Like you hear the guy talk, and it's just like you feel like you trust him. You feel like he really knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. He's so clear and professional, and you contrast that with the types of characters that have floated around the Wizards. I mean, the Wizards have been an expansion team for most of my life in the NBA. And you had those couple of seasons with Arenas where they were legit. I remember we had Arenas was like on the cover of 2K one year, and they were really good before he blew his knee out. Um, but aside from that, it's like, and then the Beal teams were like fun, right? The Beal and Wall teams were kind of like frisky for the like 2 years that worked. And then after that, it's just been a disaster for the better part of the last like 10, 11, 12 years since then. It's been horrible. And
Yeah. A lot of
you get,
miscalculations and just piecemealing things together, right?
mhm,
And it seemed like when they would get a good group, like the Arenas group, or I can remember, back in the day when they had the two Michigan guys, like every time they seemed to have a good group going, the Arenas group or the Wall group, something happened that just fractured it, whether it be an injury or a locker room incident or, they called it the curse of the boule, but it seemed like they just couldn't get it right. And I think you're right. I think a lot of it had to do with not having the right people running the show in the front office, right?
yep, it's a culture issue
Yeah.
because, you know, if, if, if Steph Curry at the height of his prime tore his ACL, you would expect Golden State to not completely fall apart when he came back. you would expect Golden State to bounce back. He'd come back from that
Right.
injury, healthy, able to play. The team will stay together until Steph gets back, and then when Steph gets back, they're right back in contention. That's what you'd expect, you know. But in Gilbert's case with the Wiz, it just completely dissolved the whole thing. And it was the same thing with John Wall's injury. It's like once John Wall got hurt, everything fell apart. And that's a lack of culture and leadership in the locker room because you can't prevent these injuries happening. But when you can do is when they happen, have some fight, have some dog, have some battle, and be ready for when it comes back and prepared for those scenarios. And they clearly never were. And since Michael Winger and his team have taken over, the Wizards have completely overhauled everything. And I have some friends that are, pretty big Wiz fans, and they're just so scorned and hurt. And they're like, man, but just look at the record, look at the record. And I'm like, guys, that's what happens in
But
the
they were,
NBA.
but the record last year, it's so. I love watching the Wizards.
They were tanking. Let's
I'm
call a
so old
spade a
school.
spade.
I went to games in the '70s. I actually saw the last time they were in the championship. Your Uncle Nick took me to one of the championship games, which was a really good experience. I love watching Wiz. I love basketball, turf basketball, and everything. They weren't trying to win last year. They were sitting guys. We don't even
Yeah.
know how good they would have been last year, which I believe would have been a lot better had they tried to win. And this is before, they added Trey and Anthony Davis. So I think last year is completely irrelevant because what they were trying to do was get this pick. That's what their whole target was. And they knew that it was a draft where even if you had pick number 4 or 5, you were going to get somebody good. And I just want to say, Will Dawkins, I mean, as impressive as you said Michael Winger is, Will Dawkins to me is even more so
Yeah,
impressive.
definitely.
And I think that Will Dawkins is not only is the process, like you said, what can we do in the offseason? We talk about it with the Commanders. We can just judge the process and the decisions we make, and then we have to wait on the results. Very same position we're in with the Wizards. But Will Dawkins is just a guy. He seems so relatable at all levels. Like
Mhm.
the story I think of is that when they were in the lottery, the night of the lottery, he was in the gym on a run, like playing a game with his boys and not even paying attention to the lottery. And he said they kind of interrupted and said, "Oh, you guys got the number one pick." And he went, "That's cool." And he went right back to the game. So I think he has
Yeah.
this ability to relate on so many different levels. He relates so well with the press. He's such a professional, smart individual. But then he can really relate at a player level too. He's a young guy. He seems to be able to really vibe at that level. And I think he's just a great leader of this organization as the general manager. And I feel like that's the thing that, Stephen A. Swift going off. Oh, it's the Wizards. I feel bad for AJ Dybantsa. You have no freaking clue what's been going on. And what they've finally done these last 3 years is what they needed to do. They blew it up, they deconstructed it, and they built it back up. Clearly, now I think you can see Ted and the organization are going, okay, enough of that. Let's still do the right thing. Let's still build, but we need to try to win now. And I think
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what they're able to watch some basketball for the first time in 5 or so years and be able to see them actually try to win. And, we haven't spent much time on the players. I mean, you got a starting 5 there just in terms of pure talent that you can really be excited about.
well, future independent primary fourth runner up Stephen Smith should know better than anybody that when an organization is a train wreck, they can turn it around because his Knicks just won the championship, and the Knicks were just as bad as the Wizards for just as long.
Yeah,
Like they had the little flash with the melon thing. They were
longer.
a disaster. They were an absolute disaster. You could argue the Wizards put together more competent teams in the last 30 years than the Knicks did. I think they did, but the Knicks obviously have figured it out in the last 5 or so years.
Knicks had some
Same
good
thing.
teams in the '90s.
Competent leadership. Well, that was
Yeah,
a little over 30 years ago now.
fair.
Crazily enough, doing the math. But the Wizards, like they followed this process, and I followed what happened in OKC, and I kept telling everybody, I'm like, guys, the people that were in charge of building that absolute wagon in OKC, which is by far and away the most talented team in the NBA, they're in charge of this thing here. They're in charge of this thing here. And even just looking at the young core that they added, like Key can play, Bub can play. Sar is a very good player. Very
Yeah.
good
And
player.
improving, improving
Yeah,
every year. Yeah.
constantly improving, and even like the guys further down roster, right? Like the Trey Johnsons, the Bilal Koulibalys, like these guys are contributors. And that's what you look for. You look for solid young contributors as you're building this thing out, and then when you get an opportunity at a star-driven league, when you get an opportunity at a star, you take them, right? But otherwise, you gotta hang out towards the bottom. And you saw what happened with the Mavs. They had a star, they blew it up, right? Wasn't getting them where they wanted to go. Blew the whole thing up. Luka's out of town. AD's out of town. Cooper Flag comes in. We're going to build the thing around him. And same thing, AJ Dybantsa, who, by the way, was floating around the Cooper Flag sphere. And there's been talk. I've seen some stuff online about the reason why Cooper Flag was so young in his class and went up a class was because Dybantsa was smoking him in this class. And so he said, I'm not going to be the number one overall pick with this Debanza guy, but I can jump into that class above. And he went in. And I've said it from the beginning. What I like about Debanza is I think Wembanyama is a great player, right? Of course. I think Wembanyama is probably the best basketball player in the NBA right now. This new thing of like getting the most athletic freak, raw, developed talent to then build and add to, that spooks me. And for every one Victor Wembanyama, you get four Kwame Browns in that recipe, right? And Debansa is just a stone cold, undeniable ball player. Like he's just 6'9" forward. Like just that is
But
just a
doesn't play like
basketball player.
6'9". He plays like a guard. Like he's
Yeah,
so fluid. You see guys like like you talk about LeBron, who's undoubtedly great. Like the LeBron just overpowers people. DeBonsa's not that, and they're
yeah,
about the same size, right?
yeah.
DeBonsa's just so fluid, and he can jump for days. He's got a 42-inch vertical,
He's a
and
freak.
he's got a great mid-range game. He can finish at the hoop. He's got to improve his three-point shooting, but I think he's very capable in doing that. Like I think when you look at somebody like him, and I know there were some people that loved Peterson, and it could be one of those situations similar to the quarterback draft in
Peterson
2024,
situation spooked me a little bit, man.
where
He feels
where
like Caleb Williams, right?
where you got three or four guys that might end up being really great players, but this guy I just think is just unique. I mean, he reminds me of the Jayden Daniels situation, right? You can look at the different quarterbacks there, but there's only one Jayden Daniels, and when he's at the peak of his powers, it's hard to beat. And I think AJ Dybantsa is similar in this class, and love, he just seems like again just a very grounded kid, really great
Just
parent,
about to say that.
similar to
Yeah.
Jayden Daniels. You know, um, I just think that, is a lot to be excited about. And, Trey Young and Anthony Davis, who knows, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I look at Anthony Davis, I
Well,
just say,
Young is here.
why would you? Yeah, well, Young, we just signed a big deal.
Young just bought
I
Washington,
don't worry about
D.C.
contracts. I'm on the record. I don't care about contracts.
It ain't
I
my
think
job. Yeah.
if you're signing a player that you think you want on your team, you got to overpay a little bit for him because you want him on your team and you're committing to that guy. I don't care. Um, Anthony Davis, I look at it and go, you know, there's only a couple of three teams that you could go to at this point and say, okay, Boston, New York, um, San Antonio, like maybe OKC. Like, are you going to be able to orchestrate a trade to one of those teams if your goal is to win a championship? I mean, he's in a great situation. At some point, he's got to wake up and go, I got a chance here. If I can lead this group and be a leader and be a vet, and also he goes to one of those other places and he wins a championship, he kind of like bought a championship, right? It's kind of like, I love KD, but it's kind of like the KD, Golden State situation, right? You win one here. or even contend for one here in the next 2 or 3 years, you're an absolute legend. So I hope he sticks around. But I do think there's a lot to be excited about, and I think you never know. I don't think what's the I was listening to um uh friend of the show Awad earlier today. I call him that. We had a little bit of an interaction, so I'll call him that. And he was talking about what success this year looks like, and AJ Dybantsa said it. Our goal is to make the playoffs. When's the last time we heard that from the Wizards? So to me, that's exciting, and we'll see whether that's play-in or a sixth seed. We'll see. It's impossible, similar to what the conversation we have with the Wizards, impossible to predict. I think we can do it, but it's possible. But I just look at the starting group and say that's a talented group, and per your point, you look at the bench behind it. Because his projected starting five is Trae Young, Keyshawn George, AJ Dybantsa, Alex Sarr, and Anthony Davis. But you still got guys like Koulibaly, Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, even a Wall Riley, who looked really good this year behind that group. So
Yeah, and if Trey Johnson can,
the
um,
boys know ball, by the way.
for sure, for sure, if Trey Johnson can find his shot and work his way in as a starting two guard, with Trey Young out there, who by the way is an excellent 3-point shooter. And great facilitator, one of the best facilitators of this generation is a Chris Paul esque, of kind of the next guard. You can pencil Trey Young in for 25 and 12 most nights. Like, if Trey Johnson can find that 3-point shot that we drafted him to have here, and big if, he didn't immediately translate to the league, but it doesn't always. It takes guys a couple years sometimes, right? If he could find that, and then you've got a guy on the wing that can just splash him, and then you've got, if you want to play small, you can run Key and Debonsa, and then have either Saw or AD at the five. AD's only going to, even if AD's in DC, he's going to play 45
And
games this year,
Koulibaly is a
maybe
lockdown
50 games.
defender. You can
Yeah.
weave in there, when you need to. So
And we haven't even talked about like Carrington, right? Bub's
yeah,
a solid guard off the bench. Like, you can't. This team's legit, man. This is not. I'm not saying they're the Oklahoma City Thunder yet. I'm not saying they're the San Antonio Spurs. But also, when you look at the Spurs, the reason the Spurs lost in the finals is they were maybe a year or two ahead of schedule on the rebuild, right? And no, do we have Victor Wembanyama on this team? Absolutely not. But could we find ourselves in a similar situation next year where it's this young team that bonds together fast and really kind of does their thing and overperforms what you expect? I think so. I think I wouldn't be stunned looking up and finding the Wizards anywhere from, like you said, like a playing game all the way up to like a 4 or a 5 seed. Like, I think it's very
I
possible
agree.
next year.
No, I
Um,
agree. I think the talent's there. It's always how it gels, but I also think that you look at the Bonza, it's a perfect fit, right? Some people said, hey, you've already got a skill set now, likely not as good, but you've already got a Peterson type skill set in Keyshawn George, right? Who was a high draft pick. So, but the Bonza, you don't have anybody on the team like him, nowhere close. So,
well,
I
I
think
don't
I
think
think
there's.
the exciting part to me is the pieces fit,
Yeah.
and they seem to fit very, very well. And you can mix in some of these guys off the bench that we talked about, and that could be a really good starting five too, right? Which is great because they're all going to have to play good minutes. So I just feel like it's the simplest of statements, but I'm just excited to watch them try and win because you've given me credit, right? You'll text me late at night. What are you doing? I'm like watching Wiz. He's like,
Yeah, I'm just like, I
I
mean,
even I
you
had to
want to
tap
watch
out.
paint dry while you're at it?
Even
Like,
I
yeah,
had
it's
to tap
horrible.
out, last year.
Yeah.
So it was impossible to enjoy watching that. So, and I think Trey Young's a different player. I think he wants to win, and I think he's going to be more of a facilitator. He'll score when he has to, but that's dangerous too because if you're not thinking about Trey Young as a scorer, all of a sudden he'll drop 40 on you.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I think I like this team. I like this setup right now. And the biggest thing about Trey Young and Anthony Davis specifically is if you look up in a year or two and Debata's the star that you hope him to be, and the young core is kind of performing, but these guys just don't have they're not really doing it. Even if you look up in February and Anthony Davis hasn't really figured it out in DC yet, whatever. They have a lot of trade value. These are big marquee
Yeah,
name guys. You trade them, you build it into something else. You go get obviously you just saw Giannis got traded, Jaylen Brown. If they're talking about trading, like these big names come available, and these are the types of guys that you throw them and two first round picks in a package, and you go get a 1A alpha top 8 guy in the league superstar type player.
but you talk about you saw the problems that Wembanyama caused the guys trying to drive in the lane. Think of an Alex Sarr Anthony Davis combination
Yeah,
defensively in the paint. That's formative. That's a formative combo in the paint. Not to
yeah.
mention, controlling the boards, right? So
And just looking at some of Debonsa's comps, like some of the names that it evokes. Tell me if these are good basketball players, right? Jaylen Brown is the first one, a supercharged Jaylen Brown. Uh, Tracy McGrady, a young Tracy McGrady, is one that comes up that I've heard a lot. Who Tracy McGrady was one of the best talents to ever play the game, a freak. And a 6'9" Shea Gillis Alexander is another one that I hear a lot. Shea might be the best player in the league. Like these are not. I don't know. I think I really do find it funny that he's all the hype around like Cooper Flag and Wembanyama, and it seems like for whatever reason he hasn't had that crazy hype, and maybe because he didn't go to Duke or he's not coming over from France. Went to BYU, small market team. But this kid's legit, and just to finish off the topic, what Pop said earlier, he seems so damn cool. That's the other thing that I really
yeah.
like about him. He
Well,
just seems so cool.
he's like Jayden Daniels.
Yeah,
He really is. And I think that he's going to have a Jayden Daniels esque type season. I really do. I think that he's going to come in and, somebody made a point. You say, oh, well, it's very quick to say, oh, he played at BYU. That was easy, right? But he was getting double teamed. The entire opposing team's defensive strategy was stop AJ Dybantsa. And he still led the nation in scoring, right? So he's not going to have that kind of defensive opposition in the NBA. So I
yeah.
think he's going to be phenomenal. I think he's going to hit the ground running. I think it's going to be like a Cooper Flag type year. He's just going to even better, maybe. I think he's going to have an Jayden Daniels.
AJ did.
I combined the two
There you go.
type season. I really do.
Well, that'd be awesome. I mean, if that's the case, then you're going to expect the team's going to be fighting for a playoff
Yeah,
spot.
it's going to be fun.
Um,
It's going to be a lot of fun, regardless of record. It's going to be fun.
Speaking of fighting for a playoff spot, getting to the Nats, this has been a shock this year. And same thing, new leadership, new front office structure, and you
Officially
expected.
over 500. They
Oh,
beat
as
the
of today, as
Orioles
of
today.
recording this right now, good
Yeah,
stuff in the Beltway series.
live update.
Um, and so they're 43 and 42 now, over 500. And that's just you never expected them to be anywhere near that. I mean, you thought they'd win a dozen, maybe 2 dozen games tops this year. Like you weren't expecting anything from the Nats. They were clearly trying to blow it all up. And then it was they traded Mackenzie Gore at the beginning of the year. And then you expected that they were going to go ahead and trade Abrams at the trade deadline. Or if not at some point over the year, you expected a complete nuclear situation from the Nats and a full teardown. And they come out and they start balling. Now, the bullpen is rough. The bullpen is
Bullpen
going
is
to
rough. Yeah.
hamstring this
Well,
team.
it'll
And
be
if you want to,
interesting to see if they pick up some pieces there. Because
yeah,
obviously the rest of the young core is starting pitching has started to come around. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be a baseball expert. I mean, we got Nats insider Dom over here,
not by
looks the
much.
part. But they do have some exciting young pieces for sure, and it's great to see them exceeding expectations. And we saw the turnaround, what led to 2019. I think that it's a shame that they had to have the front office turnover, and obviously new GM, new manager. But I think they needed some new voices to kind of
Yeah,
get them over. But you do got to give an assist to the previous regime in terms of building this core, this young core, because they've obviously been building it up. A lot of really good trades to build up
Yeah.
these young guys. And James Wood and Dylan Cruz are just exciting young players for sure.
And will the learners ever spend enough money to support all this? Remains to be seen, unfortunately. But what's building right now and the way it's all trending is super exciting. And yeah, I mean, now you're looking at you almost flip the question on its head and you go, is or should we be buyers at the trade deadline? Is there something available at the trade deadline that can really start to take this team into serious contention? I don't know, but you're definitely not. I don't think you should be looking to sell Abrams at this point. I think you've shown enough promise that with a couple off seasons and getting the pitching situation shored up, this could be a legit baseball team. It already is a legit baseball team this year. Could be a serious legit baseball team next year. The
Yeah, you just
Ambassadors.
hope they, again, similar to the Wiz, it seems like they got some really good young manager, good young GM. Let's just hope they're allowed to do their jobs effectively by the learners. Yeah.
And James Wood is just a superstar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's
Super
here for a
exciting.
while, so
Yeah.
very excited about that. And then last but not least, we got the Caps. It's sad. We neglect the Caps more than any other team because we're the least knowledgeable about them, I'd say. But they've been the actual only stable, decent organization in
We're a bit of
DC for pretty much
bandwagon
most
guys
of
when
my
it
life.
comes to the Nats and the Caps. Let's face it.
Sure,
We're a
sure,
bit of that. We're
sure.
but we do
But
get we
they're
do get into
it's
it when
our
they're
team.
rolling. Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
and they've made a few big trades for some star players. They got Alex Touch. Is that how you say his name, Pop? I mean, I'm
No
asking the
clue.
wrong guy.
No
Uh,
clue.
Jordan
I
Kyrou
thought
and
Touche when I first saw it, but
Touche. It could be Touche.
yeah.
Um, Not to be confused with what was that guy
Good
from
thing
the
this is at
Internet
the end of the pod.
Invitational? Cal Touche. Not to be
Yeah.
confused with Cal Touche. Um, But yeah, they got Alex Touche, Jordan Kyrou, and likely the return of Alex Ovechkin as well. So exciting things with the Caps, who had a bit of a down year last year, but hopefully can kind of get it together, get it back together this year, and keep it moving forward.
It seems
So
like they're making a push with these trades, right? They've got, obviously the core, Tom Wilson's back and some John Carlson and some really, great players, right? But
sure,
you had these um um you had these new stars to the lineup. It seems like they may be going for it, making a push. So you can
yeah,
always, Caps are always knocking on the door.
for sure. So what do you say we wrap
And
this
John
thing up?
Carlson just got traded, by the way. So I thought
Yeah,
it. So he's gone. But anyway, that's why we don't go deep dives into the Caps. It's
it's
I
a
don't think
dangerous spot.
I don't think you can get a better Wizards and uh, Commanders segment than we just gave you. So apologies, Caps
Yeah.
fans. There's some big Caps fans in the family, but we do like the Caps.
Well, what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop? I think we've covered the I got nothing I got literally nothing left to say
Same.
at this
There's
point in
nothing
the
left in the
outline.
tank, as I
There's
just proved.
nothing left to say. So without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you all for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Hell.